Joe and Greg, it's good to see you again. I just wanted to follow up on our prior conversation. We were talking about some of the security features that Miles has implemented for its virtual mediations since it started using the Zoom platform. Joe, could you tell us a little bit about those security features?
I'd be happy to. A couple of things to start with. Every single mediation that we do has a unique meeting ID, which is provided to the client in advance. And in addition to the meeting ID, which is unique to each mediation has a separate password for entry into the meeting. So right away, there are two gates that need to be traversed before the participants to the mediation can get into the mediation.
And I've seen some people share those meeting IDs or passwords. Is that a good idea?
To an extent, we understand, and again, a lot of the security features for virtual mediation follow the common sense of being safe and secure for in-person mediations. An in-person mediation involves the attorneys having the information about how to meet at the facility and when to meet at the facility, and that information is provided to their clients. An insurance adjuster needs to know how to get there, and the defense lawyer will provide that information. And for plaintiffs, their attorneys will provide them on how to get to a virtual mediation in the same way they do an in-person mediation. So we know that lawyers are going to provide the meeting ID and the password information to their clients and people from their office who will be participants in the mediation. We ask that our clients treat that information with the same level of security that they would information for getting to an in-person mediation. The people that need to be in the mediation need to know how to get into the mediation. No one else needs to be told that information.
Speaking of passwords, do you change your password for Zoom? And for
Absolutely. I change the individual meeting ID for each individual mediation, and the password is unique for each individual mediation.
In addition to the unique meeting IDs and the passwords, Miles has implemented a third level of security for their virtual mediations, which is the waiting room feature. Greg, can you talk about the waiting room?
Absolutely. One of the concerns about the second or third week everyone was getting used to Zoom was people being able to just jump into a meeting or a Zoom session. What the waiting room does is it serves as a gatekeeper. I, as the mediator, I can see whoever comes in, I can identify them. If they're not one of the parties or one of the professionals, they don't get in. And that keeps anyone from being able to just jump into our main session and Zoom bomb us.
What happens once you have all of the participants in the mediation session? What can you do as the mediator to protect outsiders, so to speak, from later joining your session?
I'm glad you asked. Even if someone legitimately has the ID and password, if they aren't there at the time we are ready to go and all the parties declare themselves present, I lock the mediation, and that prevents anyone from getting in. It's as good as shutting the door and starting the opening session in person at our offices. And that feature is like a third or fourth level of protection behind the password, the unique ID, and the waiting room. Jennifer, I wanted to ask you a question because you recently completed a pretty big mediation with some folks appearing out of Texas. What other safety features are there within the actual mediation itself?
Well, Zoom has an option to record mediations, and what we did is we locked out that feature. So there is a way in your settings to disable the record feature, and we do that in advance of the mediation so that the participants cannot record the Zoom session. Zoom also has the ability to chat within the mediation. And what we do is we disable the ability to auto-save or transfer the files from those chats. Joe, can you talk about some of the software features that have been implemented to protect the security of the Zoom sessions?
Absolutely. And security and safety in virtual mediations is much, again, like the general concept of security and safety. It begins at home. And what we ask our clients to do is to make sure that their computers and that their clients' computers, people that will be using devices and participating in the mediation, that they have the most current versions of antivirus software, that they've got the updates on those. we are seeing that Zoom updates are coming fairly quickly these days. The growth cycle for Zoom has been going from, I think, something like 30 million installed units to over 300 million installed copies of Zoom now existing. So as they're facing the growth, they're constantly doing updates with their software to make it even safer and even more secure. And we have the up to the second updates from Zoom. And again, we ask that our clients keep their own computers clear of viruses and current with those protection softwares.
And Greg, Miles is also using DocuSign. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Jennifer. Normally when you come to a mediation at the end of the opening, before the parties get into the general session, we sign the mediation agreement. What we're able to do now is to send that out in a DocuSign format to all the parties and all the professionals. And what they do is they go on and they click the document and do an e-signature and click finish and complete. Once all the parties have done that, everyone can get a completed copy of the virtually signed mediation document.